All right, welcome everyone. This is Chris Petri. Thanks for stopping by. I'm glad you're here. We're going to have some fun today. We're going to do some still life. This is always a great go-to exercise to do as a watercolor artist. It kind of sharpens our skills, our drawing skills, our skills with perspective and colors, our painting skills, our techniques with our brush. Basically, it's a simple way to get all of your various skill sets in your watercolor art trained to just be all functioning really well. So what we'll do is, I know many of you have seen many of my videos with still lifes, and some of you that are new. I always encourage everyone, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. We make videos every week. We do great videos like this with still life. We do landscapes, seascapes. We also do fun things with figure work. We do basically everything watercolor here. So you'll always get something new and interesting. I change around the paintings we do every week, so you can kind of pick and choose which you'd like to do. All of my videos that I create, even the ones that I have in on my YouTube channel in reserve. On my channel itself, there's over 250. Each of the thumbnails on my videos are the actual painting that we paint on that video. So you'll always know when you're searching through, let's say, some of my archives, you just look at the actual YouTube thumbnail and you'll picture, and that'll be usually 90% of the time that's what we're doing on our video, what we're creating. So let's get started here. This is a fun thing. This is just a crude mock-up of a really excellent tool when you're doing still life. This is basically just a foam backboard. So essentially what I did here was I just took two pieces of foam board and then just taped it on the front and on the back like this, so that it just makes a nice L like this. And then we set that on a table, and then we can put our, so we would set this across from us. And what it does is it isolates and makes things real clear and simple as far as the subject matter we're working with. So it's much like draping a white tablecloth across a table and then maybe a white curtain behind our subject matter. This way everything is nice and clear, easy to see when we're drawing and painting, the colors, the tonal values, the shadowing, the light. It's much more easier to see that and then, draw and paint it. So that's why I make these. So I have a large version across from me that will set up. I'm basically going to use another thing I always encourage everyone is if you can pick up some plastic fruit and vegetables and things like that online that you can have. In this way, if you're always buying fruits and vegetables and things like that and they're always around in your house, then you can use those when you're doing still lifes, obviously. But if maybe you're not always purchasing fruits and vegetables on a continuous basis and you want to just have some fruit and vegetables and still life subject matter on hand at all times, you can just pick up some of these online. These are really good. I searched for a while to find some really good. These are foam. So these are foam, lightweight foam with the, obviously the coating and the paint and everything on there. It's a beautiful job on these. And I can't remember where I got them. I think it was maybe on Amazon. So we have some fruit, a lemon, a lime, a tomato, and then I have a vase with some plastic flowers. I got these at a local hobby shop. You can get some great flowers and things at the hobby shops. This way they're always on hand. You don't have to worry. Ideally, I'd like to go out to the flower shop and buy some flowers, some fresh flowers. Sometimes I do that for paintings, and then sometimes I'll just use these for quick studies. So these type of things are just great to have around just for quick practice studies and quick compositions, and that's what we'll do here. So we have a vase and some fruit here, and we'll set these up. I'm going to set it up in a real simple fashion. The vase in the center and the fruits on the side. And maybe also add in an apple. So I'll use an apple too as well, maybe. Okay, we'll get started, and I'm just going to carefully look at my subject matter across from me on my table. And I guess the main thing is we just want to sort of maybe do a preliminary sketch here. I'm going to use the table at about, again, we'll do some hash marks. They always work really nicely. I'm going to say my table, the back of my table is about 1/3 up, 2/3 up. So we'll make this a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So that'll be, and we'll just put a center mark down here too, just to, so we can have some reference points, some checkpoints here and reference points. And so let's do this. Let's say this is our back of our table. I'm going to put my my glass jar here, my vase. I'm going to put this, I'm going to do a super light sketch here. So this is going to be just to kind of get the, just to make sure everything is looking okay. And maybe we'll put the, I'm going to put the lime over here. And the light's coming from the right. Let's make sure we make our note up here. This is our light source. I have a bright light set up. One of those table lamps. And let's do the, maybe the tomatoes over here. And a shadow. All right, so I've got the layout here. So this is pretty, and let's do the lemon too. Maybe we'll do the lemon here. Just a light sketch. So I, and the vase is here, and again, a very, very preliminary super light sketch, just so we kind of get the feel for where everything's going to be. And there's a leaf there. And that should be good. And then right away when I step back, I basically step back from my, my working table here. And when I do that, if I step back about maybe a couple feet from my paper, I see that my flowers here are a little small. I sort of rendered those a little smaller than I should, because if I'm looking at my subject matter across from me, I see there, so this flower is a little larger. So now is the time when I, since it's just a super light sketch first, then I know I can go in and add in some more realistic sizing of the flowers here, and that's much better. And I might embellish and add a few little things that might not be there. That's always good to keep in mind. You're the artist. You can add things that you like that might not be there. You can remove things you don't like in a composition. If it's not pleasing, you can do that too as well. Never feel like you have to always stick with the game plan you started with, or stick with what you always see in reality. You can always adjust things. All right, so so far I think everything looks pretty good. And that should be fine. So we're going to take a break. So this is a perfect time. We did our light preliminary sketch. We set up our, first off, we set up our paper. We just taped down our paper to our board here, a styrofoam board here, our working board. And then we set up our still life with some foam, faux fruit and vegetables, and a flower and a vase. So we'll come back here, we'll do the final contour drawing of this scene, and then we'll start painting and so forth. But always good to take breaks, so I'm going to take a break now, and we'll come back in just a few minutes. Okay, so we're back from a break now, and for some of you this might be fine. You might enjoy just having a really super light preliminary sketch and painting from that. I like to go with maybe a little darker pencil line. I like seeing pencil lines in my watercolors. That's just me personally. I find it's enjoyable to see some of the pencil marks and things like that, and it just, to me, it adds a little more interest. But I know over the years now painting on YouTube, sometimes people comment saying they don't like as many pencil lines in the drawing, so you could always do a preliminary sketch like this and then even use the eraser and erase some of the lines even further still. But again, I'm going to go in and do a contour drawing over this, and it's going to be a little darker here, so I'm going to go in and I'm keeping my eyesight going back and forth from the subject matter that I have set up across from me on my foam board. And I'm doing a little bit of the shadowing here, and then there's some stems in the vase here. And maybe I'll continue on here. I'll get this back of the table in there, and then we'll do our lime. Shadowing. And that's pretty good. All right, so let's start in with our painting. We got our contour drawing done, and the great thing about preliminary light sketching is you sort of lay everything out first. You make some changes if you like, and then you can go in and you do your drawing, and then the drawing goes easier because you're still going back and looking at your subject matter as you're drawing, but you already have those light sketches down, so it's hard to go off the plan, off the original, because you have that already set and it looks good, and you've made any changes that you wanted to before you go in and do your second drawing. Okay, and now we'll get some paints. I'll start working on this. And you can choose your brush size. This is like I would use an 8 for this, and this is an 8, a Davinci Maestro travel brush. These are the brushes that you can break apart. It's got a screw-on end piece here. The handle is a screw-on handle. And if you go out and you want to do some painting outdoors, or if you're traveling, or you're going to maybe transport your brushes here and there. You know, you just put this over the top, and it makes a great way to protect the brush. And the brushes stay fine. It's got a small hole, so there's no mold or anything that builds up on the brush because there's an air hole in the back handle section. These are great. I leave these in my, I have a bag that I keep, a leather backpack with my travel gear, so it's all set and ready to go, less my palette, so everything else is in there. So if I'm going to go out somewhere and I want to maybe do some painting, it's all set up. I'll do a video on that maybe on my other channel, Watercolor in 5, in the near future. Okay, let's get started here. We're going to do our tomato. Let's do our tomato first here. So we'll start out with some cadmium red. And maybe some alizarin crimson. Maybe a touch of cobalt blue. So already I'm thinking darker tonal values on the left. That's in shadow. And then as we go to the right, here there's more light, so we can create a sense of light. Maybe leave a light there, and shadowing, we'll use some cobalt blue, maybe some raw sienna or yellow ochre. And I'll just put that shadow there. A little more blue. Okay, and then a couple splashes. And I think I'll start in with the flowers. We're going to do some again, I'm thinking darker on the left, and the light's coming from the right side, upper right side like that. So this is going to be darker over here on this flower. And then it's lighter there. And there's some darker parts there, so we'll do some then I'm going to get green, sap green, maybe some cobalt blue, and I'll put in some green here for the center of the flowers. I make sure I don't fill in, even though it might look like it's all, again, you can always adjust as you're looking at something, and know that it's better to leave some white paper here and there. If you see a really dark section in the center of your flowers, it's probably better to leave some white paper in there. It kind of gives it a feeling of three dimensions, like you're seeing through this center section of the flowers. Even if we see all green leaves in the center of this section of this painting here, I'm going to leave some of that white paper because it does give a feeling of lightness in there versus just going in and firing in all green there. This looks a little better, and to lighten it up some, we'll add some yellow, cadmium lemon yellow, just to give it some chromium of oxide a little bit here. It helps to dry off the brush a little bit with some tissue occasionally. I'll add a little bit of more shadow over here with some cerulean blue. This is clear glass, so I'm going to use some cerulean blue. I'll use some burnt umber and sap green, and a little bit of blue, just to do a few of the stems. Some yellow ochre as well. I'm trying to get in some good mixes of colors here. And then some of that green. Again, this is glass, so I wouldn't fill it all in. I'd leave white paper. Let's do some shadowing. Yellow ochre, cerulean blue. That could be a little darker. I'll dry off my brush, rinse my brush off with water, dry off my brush. I think I wanted to lift some paint here. And then I want to actually add some more blue there for the shadowing. And a little mysterious shadowing a little bit out this way here. That would be where the flowers are. So this is closer to the and I can start working on this here. This is a lemon. We'll do lemon yellow, cadmium lemon yellow. I'm going to get some shadowing there. Then I'll just use regular cadmium yellow. So I'm using cadmium yellow and cadmium lemon yellow. I'll keep the darker, a little bit of green over here for shadowing. And then I'll work my paint out, rinse off my brush, dry off the brush a little, and then make it lighter over here. And some darker shadow, some French ultramarine blue. Then we have our, maybe we'll work up here again with the flowers. This is mineral violet. Here, since I am going with some mineral violet here for that flower, I'm going to actually, before I do that, I'll remember to add some mineral violet here and there. Again, I want to make sure I harmonize my paintings, harmonize my colors throughout my paintings. So if I add mineral violet to my painting now with this flower up above here, I'll make sure I add some of that in the other subject matter here. All right, so we've really been painting quite a while. We did about half this painting. So what we'll do now is let's finish this flower here. And maybe to outline that flower, we'll use some cerulean blue up top. So sometimes if you want to leave something very light, you can just add a little of a tonal value in the background around it. And that looks a little better. And if you see something doesn't look perfect, let it go. Maybe you can blot sometimes to occasionally lift up some paint if you need to. And then we can let that dry. So let's come back. See, this is where it's good to take a break. I'm starting to get a little bit impatient here and getting a little bit fidgety. So let me stop. We'll take another break. We'll let some of this dry, and we'll come back and we'll keep working on it. Okay, we're picking back up. We took a break. Now we're going to just get some paper towel and some water, and we'll just clean up our palette a little bit. Sometimes it's better to keep the palette clean. This way the colors stay fresher. If you just have one color on your palette, like there we have some cadmium lemon yellow, and there's no other color there, we wouldn't have to necessarily, clean up that part of the palette. But anything else that has mixtures of different colors, we try to just keep the palette neat. And then we're going to get started again here. So we're working on our vase and our flowers, and we have some purple and yellow flowers up top here. So we're going to continue with that. This is a darker shadowy side of the flower. Let's get some of that there. And I'm going to rinse the brush off, dry a little bit of water off, and then we'll get some more sap green, olive green. And I just do a quick brush stroke for the stems and leaf forms. Sometimes it's better to do those quickly and sort of, I guess when we go quicker, the line stays straighter and more, true to life. If we go real slow with a brush stroke, let's say, sometimes it can go off. So it's all a matter of the leaf or the flower or the some of the green leafy forms that you're creating. Sometimes it'll look better if it's a fine, straight, let's say, leaf like this here, quick, makes it straight and true to what the realistic look, let's say. So I'm trying to stay realistic here with my my drawing, my painting, and that one too as well. And I might add in some darker shadowing here. I see French ultramarine blue. And we'll continue over here, cadmium lemon yellow for these petals over here. So the petals over here in light, bright light, we're going to leave those more of that cadmium lemon yellow. And then the shadow side over here, we can add some blue to our cadmium yellow. And there's also another purple flower on the other side. Okay, so that's and then we'll do another. And then sometimes and I'm just trying to add a little more interest to this here. These aren't necessarily there across from me because I didn't have enough of the green leafy stuff to put extra in the vase, but I'll just put an extra few leaves and leaf forms in the painting just to add a little more interesting look to it. And then here I'm just going to try to create some shadowing on the glass. I can create the shape of the glass with a little bit of cerulean blue over here like this, and then just work that out a little bit. And this just gives a nice feel of it's like negative shape painting. We paint around the object to make it appear. So I add a little bit of cerulean blue there, and it looks pretty good. And just a design, some design to the painting. Some shadows bouncing around and happy stuff going on. It doesn't have to. I do see some shadows on the foam board across from me, but maybe not everywhere I'm painting. But okay, and let's work over here on the sap green and olive green. And we're going to do our lime French ultramarine blue. I'm going to get a little bit of a darker green, so let me go sap green, French ultramarine blue for the shadow side. That's a really beautiful dark green, and we can keep that same dark green along the underside here where there's not too much light. The light's coming from up above this way. And then we'll take some cobalt blue and raw sienna, maybe a little bit of French ultramarine. And we'll just add in a shadow there. And then we'll work our lime. I'm going to rinse my brush off, tap off the water a little bit, dry off the brush a little, and then just slowly work this paint over this way. I'm going to leave a highlight there. And if I need some more darker shadow, I just charge in some paint there. If you need to lift up some paint, you can rinse off the brush, tap it on the tissue to dry off some of that water, and then we can just lift up some paint. And I'll use some raw umber here. And we're now finishing up. We're just going to do some final details. Maybe we'll do a little bit of shadowing on our tomato here. So this, I see a little bit of shadow there. And then I'm going to mix the raw umber and French ultramarine blue to get a little bit of a dark for our stem. And if it's not quite dark, we just add some more darker and let's see, I think we could add, I would tend to say I want to balance some of the color, so I just might put a little bit of red there. Again, we're sometimes adding some things that might not necessarily be there in the painting to make it look more interesting. And if something doesn't look great, you can always blot it up. And over here we could use some maybe green. I'm just trying to balance all the colors here throughout the painting. And then maybe some splashes in the... If a splash doesn't go right, you can just tap it up. And that's pretty much it. A simple vase with some flowers. You know, we could touch up some things here if you have to. You know, maybe a few things here and there. You can touch up some colors and some of the flower shapes. But for the most part, this is, you know, really a good way to practice all the skills as we practice simple fruits and vegetables and, you know, things like this here, and lemons, limes, apples, tomatoes, flowers. Doing a simple setup like this with a foam board. Again, we're using our foam board, large size. This is just a mini version of a foam board set up with some tape on it, and you make a large one of these, and then you can set the your subject matter on top across from you, and then you draw and paint it. Definitely underrated though, still life painting. All the great masters, all the great professionals, they all paint still life as a matter of practicing with oils, acrylics, watercolors. It's just a real staple for the artist. So let's keep practicing our still lifes, everyone. It's a lot of fun, and let's take a look at this painting up close here. You can maybe see some more of the finer colors and things. And I'll just lift this up off the table. Okay, so that's really I think a little bit underdone is better. So this here, instead of reworking it over and over and maybe doing a lot extra to it, I would let it be as it is, and start another one maybe, and you know, in the next couple of days, maybe do the same idea, maybe shift some things around, you know. Maybe I move the limes and the lemon, the tomato in a different position. Maybe I crowd all the fruit together in the center of the painting around the vase, maybe make it a different composition. But basically, it's just fun to work with the paints, the drawing, the pencil drawing, over and over and over again on these type of still life drawings and paintings. And then our skills will always get better as we do that. All right, everyone. We'll see you on the next video. Happy painting.